Utah Hockey Club drops a tough one to the Dallas Stars, 2-1 on Monday. Yeah, Monday night. We're going to talk about the game. Nick Schmaltz is waking up. That's a good thing, right? And Robyn and I look back at the first 2 months of the NHL season. Where are the Utah Hockey Club now compared to where did we think they would be? All that and more coming your way on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast right now.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, welcome everybody to the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. I'm Robyn Leonio alongside Tom Callahan. We want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen each and every day. We are available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube, right on SiriusXM, ad-free on Amazon Music. It's a little post-game show, Tom. First show since Thanksgiving. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving holiday, by the way. For those who are most of our listeners who are, American listeners here. But
happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Do you have to bring that up for the Indigenous folks who may be listening, both north of the border, south of the border, wherever you are?
There you go. Let's get to the little of the post game because Utah Hockey Club, Tom, it takes a 2-1 loss to the Dallas Stars at home, which we can really dive into, as well as maybe bring up a little bit some of your thoughts as well as from over the weekend, including that 6-0 win over Vegas. Excuse me, I drew a blank there. I was about over Vegas.
Well, I mean, what can't you say about a 6-0 win over the Vegas Golden Knights? That makes you feel 10 feet tall, Robyn.
Oh, of course.
You feel absolutely amazing after a game like that. And, we're going to talk about Nick Schmaltz, but, he scores twice and things are rolling. Utah looked good. And then you lose 2-1 to the Stars. It didn't look bad, but, tonight's game, I'm not angry. I'm not frustrated. I'm kind of like the parent that's disappointed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When your parents, like, you expect them to yell at you and they don't, they're like, I'm just disappointed. That's kind of how I feel. And talking about that Vegas game is a great, okay, you played that way here.
Mm-hmm.
Why was there not more of that? And that's the frustrating inconsistency that we've been talking about all year long. I didn't really notice Utah taking a big nap tonight, which they do sometimes, and all of a sudden they let in a couple of goals and the complexion of the game changes. They didn't do that, which is great. It means they're learning and they're taking those baby steps. But, man, it's disappointing. Like, I left the game tonight feeling there's this weird little hole in my thought process and my commentary about it because I'm like, man, something was missing. And it's exactly what it sounds like to me is, man, there's just something that's not there with this Utah Hockey Club all the time. But again, 6-0 over Vegas. It was there then. Where'd it go?
So I'm going to use a term that the everydayers, if you are a true everydayer, the one that's been following this show since I took over Locked On Coyotes almost 4 years ago, and saying that this team is consistently inconsistent. It's the same stuff, but they just they have a really good game, like the Vegas game, and then this kind of game where it's, like you said, it's disappointing. But then there'll also be a game in which they take so many naps, and just completely blow it, and they're chasing half the game. It seems to me it's like clockwork, Tom. It's like clockwork. You see it come, riding like waves. Like, can we find at least? Look, I would be happy. Like, I'd rather have consistently mediocre than consistently inconsistent.
I suppose what makes it hard, Robyn, about being inconsistent is the evaluation process. What do you have? Which Dylan Gunther do you have? Which Nick Schmaltz do you have? Which Lawson Krause do you have? Which everybody do you have? And that's the hard part, is which player will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Like, which one is it? And the frustrating answer is, even within the context of one single game, it can be many different versions of the same player. And for whatever reason, with that consistency not there, that is what makes it so hard to even improve this team, because you ask yourself, well, what do we need? Do we have the answer on defense? Do we have the answer in the top six? Do we have the answer on the fourth line? Do we have the answer in net? And even the goaltenders. I mean, Ingram is out right now, but he's been inconsistent this year. Vejmelka's actually been a lot better lately.
Yes.
Is awesome. I'm so glad to see Veg step up, especially in a contract year. He's looked pretty good. Could I nitpick one of the 2 goals against Dallas tonight? Sure, I can. But to me, that's what makes it so hard to fix what's going on with this team, because it's never the same thing twice.
Yeah. Now here's the real question: are we going to see Jackson Stavro again soon?
I mean, well, so probably not. Okay, if we do see him, maybe we do see him in Buffalo, because they have a long break here. They don't go to Buffalo to the end of the week, but then they are back-to-back Friday, Saturday. So I think if you do see him, maybe see him against the Sabres. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe, just to give maybe like Ingram one more day to get healthy or whatever it might be.
I mean, I don't mind seeing, and the thing with injuries too is, and I see it at every level, and I've seen it with every team I've ever been with, there's always the battle.
Yeah.
The player pushing to get back on the ice a month ago, and the trainer saying, I realize you want to be on the ice a month ago, but you still only have 3 fingers on your left hand. So, they haven't grown back yet. So let's give it a minute till all 5 fingers are there. And, that's the battle that they face all the time to try to figure it out. So, at the end of the day, when the player's ready, the player's ready. When they're cleared, they're cleared. So, but hey, you know what? That was a good showing. I didn't mind that at all. It's that's a pretty darn good appearance.
It was. One more little note from at least from this game, as well as kind of just in general the last couple games, I want to put out, Tom, and I want gonna go more in depth about this thought later on in the show when we get to that that review period. If you're looking at the at the rundown coming up on YouTube, you can see we got our lower first 2 months review coming up. But I want to give this because it's kind of the last few games kind of situation. Now Utah's down another D-man and Maverick Lamoureux. They're just cursed to hell, and they out what's like 4 to 6 weeks, whatever it was. So not until like, let's say late December, whatever we're looking at, or early January to have him back. It's really it's crazy to see that. And Utah put out the performance that they've had in the last couple of games. It shows that they're trying to put off an effort despite being out, two of their top D-men plus another young D-man who's been very promising.
Robin, it gives them all the ammo they need to have an excuse. You know what I mean? It does. And I mean, even the fans would understand, like, man, now you've got 3 starting defensemen out fairly long term. How do you get past that? Well, you still got to play the games. But what's nice is, I think this is a testament to what they're doing down in Tucson, keeping the systems the same, preparing the players the same way, getting them ready to step into these roles with the big club. So at least when you do climb the ladder, you're not unfamiliar. You're not getting thrown into the deep end of the pool. You have already, been swimming around in that area and kind of should understand how things go.
And I feel like the ones that have come in, they've been pretty serviceable and done a fine job. Maximilian Zuber has been fine,
Yeah, and you know what? We have seen, I think, a pretty good rotation through the last couple of years of guys going up and down. That's That's been pretty solid. You know what? I was actually very impressed with Lamoureux taking the big step forward this year. I kind of wondered when they called him up. I'm like, what are we going to see? Is he going to be capable? Is he going to be ready?
I had high hopes.
He hasn't looked out of place at all.
Right.
He's looked very good. So, and again, now he's the guy that goes down, right? So you just, what are you doing at this point? You're just rolling your eyes, and it's so. Somebody get this team a horseshoe or a rabbit's foot or something. I don't know. Paint the room green, throw shamrocks in it, something. I don't know what's going on.
They gotta, maybe maybe go see like a psychic or some kind of like, or someone who's going to help remove whatever demons they might have lingering.
They need
over
a hockey shaman.
Yeah, they got to figure something out. Who knows what who knows what it might be. But we'll get more into that later. Later get to more of an overall first couple months review of the season. We're also going to talk a little bit about Nick Schmaltz and get a little bit more into that, because I feel like both Tom and I have some thoughts of the Nick Schmaltz performance the last couple of games. We're going to get to that right after this. Hey, and today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players with a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action in sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and of course that does also include Utah. You can sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I've been using Prize Picks for the last, a couple months or so, and I've really enjoyed it. It's given me the opportunity to get some great lineup wins, get some and make some good money doing it. It's been really fun, especially some of the deals they have. Like when I go with Taco Tuesday and I get a really good value pick, or when I get those flex plays where I'm able to essentially worry about either getting 4 out of 5 rather than 5 out of 5, and I still get at least something out of my win. Go ahead and check it out yourself. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So, Tom, let's keep going on here. You kind of teased it a little bit earlier in the show, talking about Nick Schmaltz waking up. And I feel like it's important because we've been very critical about how quiet Nick Schmaltz has been for the first good portion of the first bit of this season, and it seemed like he finally broke whatever was hurt, or finally shook off whatever was weighing him down or whatever it was. But it seems like he's finally kind of heating up a little bit.
Yeah, which is good to see because he can be such an impact player. And Robyn, it's not that the assists weren't there; they were, but the goals weren't. So that's pretty tough on Nick Schmaltz. And now scored twice against Vegas. Finally, on 5 shots. And that's the other thing too is didn't score against Edmonton, but 5 shots. Scores twice against Vegas, 5 shots. Now tonight, not as much. Kind of backed off that a little bit, but did score. However, 2 shots. I would like to see him continue to shoot the puck and, just keep actually, I guess 3 total shots, 1 shot on goal and 2 attempts blocked. So he scored on the 1 shot that actually got through. That's, to me, I think Schmaltz is a pass first guy, but I would love to see, along with a couple other players on Utah Hockey Club, shoot the puck more. Just shoot the puck more. And I think, he does have the talent. He's got a nice release. He's a smart player. He can find a way to put pucks through and into dangerous areas. And not every shot is a shot to score. Sometimes you're trying to pass off the pad of the goaltender. Sometimes you're just trying to create something or get a tip, get some traffic in front. So, he's a smart guy, and I would love to see him shooting the puck more.
And I think it's even more importantly too is as a leader on this team, he's one that is a player that's consistently going to wear the A on his sweater, and he really has to show for it. He really has to prove that he deserves it on that, alongside Lawson Krause and Clayton Keller, who wears the C, and Mikhail Sergachev, who also will occasionally wear the A. So, those are the players who you expect to shoot often, because they're setting the example of what's expected in this team.
Well, and with Schmaltz, again, I mean, we know he's a pass first guy, and he's part of he's a really important part of the top line.
Yes.
And you want to see those guys contributing. You must see him staying healthy as well. If his assist numbers are up, at least it means other guys are scoring around him, right? So that's a plus. But now when we're in a situation where you lose 2-1 tonight, I mean, 6 goals, they all go in. Some nights are like that. Everything you touch turns to gold. But then you have a game tonight where he does get the goal. And I thought Utah had some good chances, especially in the first period. But I feel like the first period was essentially their best period. They had chances off the rush. They generated fairly well. They were moving the puck through. And again, a lot of it was off the rush. But at one point over on Blue Sky, I said, okay, all this stuff off the rush is great. You just don't score a large percentage of goals off the rush because you don't have as many of them versus sustained zone time. So I want to see more sustained zone time.
Establish that forecheck a lot more.
Yeah, and cycle the puck, move it around in the wall. And I think that especially, the top 6 need to do that more. I thought the fourth line did a great job of that, but they're the fourth line. And they're supposed to be an energy line and a change of pace, but they're not playing 18 minutes a night. They're playing 11 minutes a night. Your top 6 needs to be more involved with that. And Schmaltz is one of those guys. So hopefully it's coming around. It's great to see him score 3 goals in 2 games. I will absolutely take it. And now I hope that everybody around him starts to take a cue from him. But I mean, Dallas showed tonight what Dallas did well, is they did not panic. Even when they were a little out of position, even when they weren't quite where they needed to be, they just did not panic. They went back to the game plan, and just eventually they'd find a way to get the puck out of the zone.
And that just shows you what an experienced team, knows what's expected, right? We're talking about a Dallas team, and it's changed here and there over the last couple of years, but it's still, by and part, a very similar Dallas team that has made it to the playoffs for the last few years. Not only the playoffs, but deep playoff runs.
And is a team capable of doing it again this year. They're always near the top of the standings. Just solid from top to bottom. And it's funny, outside of Dallas Stars fans, people probably can't name more than 3 or 4 players on the Dallas Stars. But they're such a good team that they don't need Sidney Crosby to be successful.
No, you don't need to. And I think that's one of the most important bits, is it shows you that depth really is a huge thing on, when it comes to the National Hockey League. You get some of these really good fourth liners are really good just overall, together as a team. They can easily, they can beat those players, those teams that have 1 or 2 superstars, like your Nathan McKinnons on Colorado, or your Sidney Crosby or Alex Ovechkin or Connor McDavid or whoever you also want to name that are quote superstars in the National Hockey League.
And the other thing too, Robyn, I think, is people thought that they might have been a little bit of a fluke. Remember, they've been playing this way for several seasons now.
Yeah.
And under a couple different coaches. I think under Rick Bowness, people wondered if it was a bit of a flash in the pan or a bit of a fluke. But they have shown, once Bowness had to step down, Pete DeBoer comes in. He's had the success there. I mean, even Jim Montgomery had the success when he was there in Dallas. But, I mean, obviously that they had to move on from him. It's just that it's a good roster. It's a good well-built team and you put them in a position to succeed and they're smart enough not to shoot themselves in the foot, then you're going to win a lot of hockey games.
Absolutely. And I think that's the most important part. And I think, and again, that goes to the overall thing of what we're expecting from this team as a team, as well as, again, as we were talking about earlier, in that leadership core. To me, I feel like they're the ones setting the example for this, and that's what I hope to see more from someone like Nick Schmaltz, and see what we can get out of him.
You know what? At this point, again, I mean, right now, and we'll get into this when we talk about our first 2 months in review, obviously, but where are they settling into in the standings? Because 2 months in, you kind of know what you have at this point. Even with the injuries, I think you kind of know what you have. So we can definitely get to talking about that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good a little good teaser. We can get to that. Let's do that right after this.
And today's show brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Tom. So it is now December. December is fine. We're in the final month of 2024. We've had 2 months pass, a full 2 months pass of the NHL season. So it's a good point to take a look and see how has this team fared in these 2 months. You can go down a lot of different routes in here, maybe different categories too. You can look at the performance. You can also look at the the city in it being buying in. I think that's going to be an interesting. There'll be a little interesting point of conversation as well. But 2 months in, Tom, how are we feeling?
Organizationally, Robyn, I think they get high marks, especially for the short runway. As someone who setting up a franchise in Tucson, even though it was the American Hockey League, not the NHL, but having a short runway, I absolutely respect what they had to do to even play game one. Yeah. So good for them. Kudos. Not the easiest thing to do. And again, I think high marks for organizationally how they've been able to transfer everything so quickly. On the ice, I think if we remember back to where we felt we were on this team at a couple different points. Number one, right before the draft and free agency, we expected drafting defensemen, stay patient and develop, and in free agency, go hunting, maybe pick up a forward or two and see if you could just kind of try to adjust and get a little better. That is not how it went. They added defensemen, big time, and then drafted mostly forwards. So, okay, now through July and August, we think maybe they've improved things to the point where they could be a playoff team, right? There were a lot of people, remember, preseason calling Utah the 8th seed. And there was good reason to when they were healthy. To me, and I stick by this phrase, if they overachieved, they would be a playoff team. Not only have they not overachieved, Robyn, they have also suffered injuries along the way. And now, as it turns out, like 3 of their essentially top 7 defensemen, because let's face it, Lamoureux wasn't in the plans initially.
Yeah.
But that hurts. I honestly think if they were healthy, Bortuzzo's probably splitting time between the American Hockey League and Utah Hockey Club, between the Roadrunners and UHC. But that's not how the season went. Bortuzzo's been a full-time member. Ian Cole has been pushed into taking those big minutes again. And they're not playing consistent hockey. So the problem is, when I said I wanted them to be in that 10-11 conversation, maybe threatening 9, I wanted to see them grow towards that. So if they started off terrible but got better and I saw a marked improvement, I'd feel better about that. Why I don't necessarily feel great 2 months into the season, and we talked about it earlier, is just the complete lack of consistency once again. And that is the most frustrating thing about this hockey club. I just want to know who they are on a nightly basis, and I don't.
It goes back to what I said earlier with the struggling of the being consistently inconsistent as they continue to be what looks to be like a different team each game, each game. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, I want to take each of these moments and say, okay, this is something to take out of this game and something that they can work on the next game. But if I compare it to how they were 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks prior or at the beginning of the season, they did that. They're just not doing it this time. So to me, it's just like, okay, how can we fix that? And how can they, get back on track and, get to where they want to do? And to me, it boils down to a couple things. And again, I'm not using this as an, as you like to say, as an excuse, but this is a bit of a bit of a reason. And this is not, but I'm not using the injuries here. I'm using their youth. This is a young team still, by and large, a very young team. With the exception of the leadership, Keller's been around for a while. Schmaltz has been around for a while. Krause has been around for a while. Sergachev is a veteran in the NHL, so like you expect more from them, but for the most part, Cooley, Gunther, Michelli, McBain, they're still pretty young players. You can't expect them to put their best every day. I mean, you sure hope they do, but they're a young team. They're young guys. Not that it's the NHL. I still do have high expectations for them, but to me, I'm saying they're still learning a lot. But there's also on the leadership to make sure they get to that sooner rather than later.
All right, I'm not going to let them off the hook so easy. I think they do need to bring their best every night, and they're not. And again, it's the consistency issue. So, and I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know if it's systems. I don't know if it's X's and O's. I don't know if it's leadership. I don't know if it's just personal motivation. If today's player is so different that, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know if they're disjointed because they moved to Utah. Although, as you so aptly point out, this is not a new story. So to me, I love Bukestad. Once he got back, I think he's been a real good example, but he's an older guy and has played like it. I think Jack McBain's emergence has been nice. So I'm going to give you a couple highs and a couple lows. So McBain, Bukestad, those are highs for me, the way they've come out. I thought Gunther's start was great, but you want to talk about a young guy getting a big contract, which doesn't even kick in until next year. But the fact that it's signed now, he came out, on fire. And now the adrenaline's wearing off. He's slowing down a little bit. Now he's picking his game back up. So to me, he's going to be a high by the time it's all said and done this season. And I think a guy like Kevin Stenlund, who I still absolutely think was a great under-the-radar acquisition.
Yeah.
So, and I'll just give you my lows, and then I'll let you shoot your highs and lows here. Sergachev's been a low for me. And I'm just going to throw that out there. He's been a low. I know he's logging a ton of minutes. I know they're asking him to do a lot. But they went out and got Olli Mata, and now Mata has kind of stepped into that role where he's the minutes horse, and he's logging the big time out there. They put that on him. Sergachev has not gotten better. He's still giving the puck away. He's still turning it over. He's not there yet, and that's a little scary for me because you are anchored to him for the next several years. And the defense as a whole, let's face it, has been not great. And I think like the bottom part of the defense has not been as good as I wanted it to. The Kesselrings, the Valley Mackeys, I will say, Ian Cole's been a plus. I do want to say Ian Cole's been a plus, but and just obviously the injuries have been a negative, and the consistency. I actually think Veggie has outplayed Ingram this year. I would like to see Connor Ingram. Gosh, how many people flame me this summer for picking on Connor Ingram? And yet here I am 2 months into the season going, okay, he had one good stretch, and now it's kind of back to normal, I guess. And now he's hurt again. We got more injuries to talk about. Those are negative.
Yeah, those are, a lot of those injuries are especially since they're long term, right? They're out for until 2025.
You're missing chunks of time here. Yes, chunks of time.
Well over half the season at this point, and it sucks that they're gone. I think that's definitely takes a massive hit to this team that I had much higher expectations for. And again, I was probably a little bit higher than you, right? I was like, this is a team that very well could push into that playoff spot. Like I was pretty darn close to saying that. I think even at some points I was like, yeah, they're going to be right there at that East spot. They're going to be right there. Because I feel like they did on the offseason on paper. They made those strides forward. But outside of that, when you take a look at what they've done since, they haven't convinced me. And it's the same old story. And I thought they made strides in the offseason. It seemed like they did, but it's the same old team that I've been used to covering for the last 8 years or whatever, how long it's been. I've been covering covering this squad, as the term I've been using. That is the annoying bit. But
so give me your pluses and minuses, Robyn.
Oh God. I feel like one plus I will give is in Clayton Keller, having him now the new captain. I feel like he's coming in. He knows the kind of the right things to do as a captain. I mean, he's wearing the A for a minute, but this is the first time he's wearing a C, right? I feel like he's doing it pretty well. And I feel like he's. We haven't heard any complaints otherwise. He's still one of the best players on this team, and is really setting the example of what's expected. Is he always the best? No, but he's always going to at least be a focal point on the team. For as much as the positive as you can take it. Even though Dylan Gunther goes through his highs and lows, I consider him a plus. I consider Logan Cooley too. Logan Cooley's been fantastic. Those two, I think, they're the future of this franchise, and they're only getting better. Like I said, they've had ups and downs, but to me, I'm giving them a plus on that. A minus, again, you've kind of mentioned it, and I'm gonna kind of just make an overarching thing, just the blue line, not necessarily specific players, but to me, it's just the blue line. I feel like it's, as you mentioned, someone like Sergachev, who has high expectations, but he's making so many defensive mismatches. And I feel like a lot of the games that he's done, he's forced too many stretch passes through the neutral zone, which that's what kind of leads to
ice in the offensive zone,
cross ice or whatever it might be, and it just leads to so many gosh darn turnovers and odd man rushes the other way. It has me shaking my head. Has Sergachev scored a lot, and is for some reason, like as was pointed out, I'm not over the weekend, that the Utah Hockey Club are technically, quote, undefeated, while Mikhail Sergachev wears an A on his sweater. To me, that may be a coincidence, but I'm kind of with you on that. I feel like, again, those mismatches, you notice those all too well.
Yeah, and those are the things they have to clean up. And now that is coaching. You do have to come down on the player, and there have to be consequences if the player himself does not make the adjustment. It's hard to sit a guy who makes that much money, it's hard to discipline that player. You kind of have to live with the good and the bad that they bring. But for someone who talks so much about Victor Hedman and the influence that Hedman's had on their game and blah, 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 I have not seen a shred of Victor Hedman. So I would like to see shreds of Victor Hedman. I would like to see shreds of other defensemen who don't put their team at risk for an odd man the other way because they think they're going to thread the needle every single time they throw a puck 50 feet. So, no, we don't need that. We need the smart, simple play. Good first pass, move the breakout up the wall. Look, sometimes you can hit the stretch, and it's awesome when it works, but it doesn't work all the time. 1 out of 10, it's more like 1 out of 30. So it just, I mean, I understand talented players want to make talented plays, and he is a talented player, but there's got to be a time and a place for it. And, you know, 1-goal game's not the place for it. You know, sometimes in desperation, you know, you could try to show that off, but and he's not the only one. I don't want to turn this into a bang on Sergachev moment.
Oh no, it is and that's why I said the blue line. That's why I just painted it as the blue line situation.
It's also his first year being in this kind of limelight, but the fact that Mata now is exceeding his time on ice is telling to me.
Yeah. And I feel like that's an interesting thing, as I can mention as like, yeah, sure, I put a a negative mark on this blue line, but I can give a positive mark to, you know, a couple players like Mata, and even though he's now injured, Maverick Lamoureux, who have exceeded expectations, and have really stepped into their role of we didn't know what they would do into a shattered defensive core.
Yeah, and it's going to be under development. That's just where we're at right now, right? It's going to be under development. It's going to be a work in progress, and as it gets healthy, the chemical makeup will change. You're going to get, you know, they'll be different when they get, and I know it's not going to be for a while, but you know, when you do get a Jersey back, when you get a Marino into the lineup for the first time. You don't even know what John Marino is going to do to this team yet. And now we have to wait to get Lamoureux back in the lineup.
Yeah, and you know, hopefully when they all come back, maybe, you know, the hope is that you can that they are at the expectation of what you wanted them to be. Because you got to think of what, you know, and again, people tend to, you say, not to dwell on the past too much, but you take a look at how the team was performing pre-Jersey injury. They were doing pretty well, pretty nicely.
The best and worst thing that could happen is that they get healthy in March, put on a run, don't make the playoffs, but then start to say, oh, what could have been? What could have been?
Exactly.
Nothing could have been.
That's why you don't.
That's not the season you had.
That's why you don't dwell on that. But
what
you can do is maybe use that as a thinking, say that what they can do when they bring them back, and then you can take a look at, oh, so this is what we are capable of if we can stay healthy. Let's take this into next year. Take as much momentum as we can into next year, and see if we can do this again, but better.
Yep, and they'll add a few, subtract a few, and at the deadline, if they're sellers, I mean, I know teams will be banging the phones about a guy like Ian Cole. So we'll see. I mean, we're a long way from that, though, Robyn. At this point, I just want them to stay as healthy as they possibly can. And you know what? They've got some time off this week. Like I say, they're not heading down to Buffalo till the end of the week. So, you know, maybe get a rest day in there, and please work on the special teams. I didn't even talk about special teams. Well, you know, we're going to talk about special teams tomorrow. How's that?
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We're going to do a lot of other extremely focused review episodes probably in the next couple of days, including special teams and a couple other things. But we'll get to that later. But that's going to be it for this episode, Tom, because we feel like we're pretty overtime on this, as we kind of went pretty far in depth a little bit on that on that little last segment review. But you know what? That's okay. If you don't like what you heard today, don't forget to leave a review. Give us a comment. Give us a like. Subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your shows, including on YouTube, SiriusXM, ad-free on Amazon Music, and of course, Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere else. If you do subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell. You get notified every single time a new episode drops. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on X at LO_NHL Utah and on Blue Sky at Locked On Utah Hockey. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. That's on X, and Robyn Nice Time on Blue Sky. Tom, where can they find you?
I am at Callahan on air on Twitter, and then over on Blue Sky, I am at Tom Talks, and I am on the main Blue Sky server.
All right. Well, once again, you can follow us, you can mention us, you can DM us or whatever, and ask us any question you might have, and we'll answer right back. We'll definitely banter back and forth for you guys. But if there's also some questions you have for the show, we can go ahead and feature those questions on the next episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.